And a good Thursday early afternoon to everyone. Roger Hill of Wuthering Heights, VELCO Weather Hazards Forecaster. Looking at the big picture here, of course, down here we see Nicole. Nicole is a Category 1 hurricane that came ashore. It is now a tropical storm, reduced wind speeds, still pretty hefty and fairly wide circulation at that. It's going to be taking a track basically into the eastern part of Tennessee, northern Georgia, western North Carolina, and from there it's going to slide up a little bit either along the spine of the Appalachians or a little bit to the west. That's going to continue to take a track, and Nicole looks like it's going to be tracking either right over the state of Vermont or a little to the west. If it tracks a little further to the west, it could be that we get dry slotted for a time, and that will reduce some of our the impacts on how much rainfall we're going to see, how much enhanced rain. However, it is a tropical system, and we're probably good for 1.5 inches. 2.5, 3 inches might be a little bit out of the question. It's going to have some forward momentum as well as it makes that track over New England, the northeast United States into southeastern Canada. It looks like it'll also tag along and pull some colder air aloft at first, and eventually cold enough air that it's going to mix with some wet snowflakes in the mountains and maybe some trace snowfall in some of our local higher terrain. All of that taking place by basically later in the afternoon or into the evening hours or Sunday night, somewhere in that vicinity. We are looking at colder than normal weather to eventually work into the region for the beyond this outlook period, which ends on Tuesday, early Wednesday morning. It looks like somewhere along about maybe Wednesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe late in the week and toward next weekend, we might see some coatings of snowfall that may be enough to cause some traffic issues or travel issues. So heads up on that. Hope you have your snow tires on. Let's take a look at the latest computer modeling. And here we are on the left-hand side, we have the Euro. On the right-hand side, we have our GFS. This is a deterministic both, not the ensembles. So latest forecasts are in pretty good agreement. And we can see Nicole with this large area of higher pressure still in control. This is valid about 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday, tomorrow or tonight. And it does look like we'll see increasing high-level clouds that will lower and thicken through the day on Friday after what could be a beautiful sunrise in the eastern horizon with a little bit of thin cirrus. But eventually, that's all going to get overwhelmed as that system approaches and pushes up the Appalachians, the Ohio River Valley. The actual surface center of the area of low pressure, a little bit sketchy in exactly how it's going to work, but some indications have been a little bit to the west along the St. Lawrence River Valley, some indications over the state of Vermont. Needless to say, we're probably going to have a 1-2 punch with this first amount of rainfall work on in Friday evening, then a dry slot. That's kind of where we are here, and then sort of that secondary wraparound that's going to work in, and once that moves on out, it's going to start to tug on some of this colder air. You can see these blue lines. That indicates the temperatures below the 0 degree centigrade mark at 850 millibars. And so that's some pretty cold air, and that means what kind of precipitation will fall will probably be a mix of rain and snow or some wet snowflakes. We're not talking about a lot, but needless to say, there's another system that's going to be right behind it, and you can see a little bit of that, and that's going to work on through, and that's probably going to produce kind of a combination of rain and wet snowflakes, a little bit of trace potential in the higher terrain, grassy surfaces, and whatnot. We're into that time of the year, and certainly we have that going. Once that the remnant of Nicole moves on by, it changes up the weather pattern, and we get little bits and pieces. This is probably the most significant one that I see around the corner. Note, the GFS is not on board with this. Neither is the Canadian, but we could see something here, potentially even a little bit of a wet nor'easter kind of roll on by, as we have a lot of cold air. Some high latitude blocking will have been affected at that point, and that colder air is making some inroads toward Vermont finally after hanging out in the western United States. Looking at the GFS ensemble centered on Montpelier, Vermont grid, we have our 3-hourly QPF, and we have round 1 and then a lull and then round 2, and you can see that it's fairly significant rainfall. The total QPF looks like this, which is going to be greater than 1.5 inches in a lot of places. The blue line, the deterministic model here, elevates that 1.4, 1.5. This is the average of the ensembles for the GFS. Still pretty significant no matter how you look at it. Taking a look at the in terms of precipitation type, it's going to come in as all rain. However, we're going to start to see colder temperatures work on in and mix in with a little bit of snow. Let's take a look at the top of Mount Mansfield at 850 hectopascal or millibars. This is our 0 degrees centigrade line. Anything below that is usually snow. Anything above that is rain. So consequently, we do see fairly warm temperatures leading up to that, and then a very significant fall in temperature. A frontal system will push on through, and that's going to lower the boom on the colder air, and then we stay below that 0 degree center line at a mountaintop level like Mount Mansfield, and this is going to be all snow for any precipitation that falls, and we're going to start to accumulate some of that snowfall on grassy surfaces down in the lower elevations, but mainly in the highest elevations. It looks like we'll start to accrue just a little bit of snow as we enter this period of below normal temperatures. This is our total rainfall with the 7-day total QPF, the accumulated rainfall. We can see that most of it, of course, is Florida. This is all associated with Nicole, and this is some drier conditions behind it that's going to work on in, and then wetter conditions back here. So consequently, once Nicole goes on by, we've seen the bulk of the rainfall for this outlook period. Climate reanalyzer at the University of Maine. We're looking at above normal temperatures, significantly so, but look at this. This is the colder air that's going to be pushing on in, and once Nicole tracks at our latitude, this is going to catch up to it, get sucked in, and pulled across the region, and a lot of that's going to be in the eastern side of the country. Let's take a look at that for the MOT. Almost coast to coast, we have colder than normal weather, and the coldest, of course, up in parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and so on and so forth. This is going to start to make some inroads. We have, in our neck of the woods, still 3 to 6 degrees above normal. Weighted here, again, this is over the next 5 days of higher temperatures only. What about 3 days later? Well, coast to coast, cold. Can't say 100% for sure, but you can stick a fork in it for the tropics. This is the end. Nicole is the last system, and it does look like we don't see a whole lot going on here beyond this point. Nothing really advertised, and even our latest tropical cyclone model guidance is indicating nothing. That's it from here. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.